Yeah, so if you're just joining us, welcome to Problem Solution Fit. I'm going to go ahead and get started because we want to hear from Brian, not me. Uh, but this is one of Startup SAC's monthly office hours where we invite a guest who can teach us a topic that's of interest to startup founders. So if you're not familiar with Startup SAC, I'm Laura Good. I'm one of the co-founders, and Jeff Bennett is the other co-founder. And Jeff is going to tell you a little bit about Startup SAC.
So yeah, hi everybody. So my name is Jeff Bennett. As Laura said, I am the co-founder of Startup SAC. We launched roughly in 2016, and our mission is to accelerate the Sacramento startup and innovation ecosystem by informing, educating, empowering, and connecting its startup founders and innovators. And we do that in three main ways. One is events like this, where we do workshops, which are now all virtual. We also have other kinds of workshops. We'll have a happy hour event, which is next Friday, which hopefully, or I'm sorry, next Wednesday evening, which hopefully we can chat about a little bit later. But we also have a lot of resources we share on our website and our newsletters, and we also provide community support and outreach by connecting people one-on-one and guiding them. We're kind of like the concierge of the Sacramento startup ecosystem is kind of how I think of that. So if anybody has any questions about Startup SAC, feel free to email either myself or Laura. You can do that at jeff@startupsac.org or laura@startupsac.org.
And if you want to visit our web page, it's on there, startupsac.com. You can get there at startupsac.org as well.
Yeah.
Startup SAC is made possible by the donations and contributions of our corporate sponsors, and those sponsors are Nivagen, SMUD, Moneta Ventures, Witten Law, Weintraub Tobin, Ernst & Young, and Greenberg Traurig. So thank you very much. If you're interested in supporting Startup SAC, again, you can reach out to Jeff or myself. And I also want to give a big thank you to all of you who purchased a ticket rather than using the scholarship ticket. It helps keep us sustainable. And for those joining us on scholarship, we're really excited to have you here as well. So we want to make it affordable for everyone. Okay. So our presenter today is Dr. Brian Gladden, and I think Brian will tell you more about it himself, but he's the entrepreneur in residence at the Carlson Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at Sacramento State. And Sacramento State has, or the Carlson Center has partnered with Startup SAC on a number of events, including this one, to find us a wonderful speaker on an exciting topic. And also together, we put together Startup Happy Hour. So I'm gonna go ahead and let Brian take it from here as we get into the meat of problem solution fit.
Thank you, Laura. I'm going to quickly turn it over to Cameron Laldo, the Executive Director of the Carlson Center, for a little blurb on what we do at the Carlson Center, and we'll talk more at the end about that as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian, for bringing me into the conversation. And thank you, Jeff and Laura, for partnering on yet another event. We always enjoy partnering with you and working to support entrepreneurs and really growing our ecosystem. For those of you that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name's Cameron Law, and I'm the Executive Director at the Carlson Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. We serve as a regional hub and platform for providing approachable and accessible entrepreneurial education, community, and support to really empower and enable startup founders of all backgrounds to explore and launch their businesses. We have a mission to make innovation and entrepreneurship pervasive throughout the greater Sacramento region and have this clear vision of the Sacramento region really being this hub of innovation and entrepreneurship. And we really want to act as that connecting force to grow our ecosystem. We offer a variety of programs and resources to serve our entrepreneurial community. We are located at Sacramento State, but we do serve the broader region and community. And how we've really bucketed our programs is what we look at in terms of the entrepreneurial journey. So we start with our Discover programs, which are all about creating different on-ramps into the entrepreneurial space and providing that inspiration and that knowledge sharing to get you to that next level to really launch into your idea Our next phase of programs are called our build programs. They're all about helping you take your idea and building the business model around it to be successfully launching into, bringing that venture to life and having an impact in our world. And lastly, we have our launch programs, which are all about taking your idea and your business model to scale. We have a number of partners in the community that we execute on those programs. And then lastly, we have some foundational resources around mentorship and just connecting to office hours. So myself and our 2 entrepreneurs in residence, Brian, who you're going to hear from today. We also have Jesse, who's on our team, and we provide one-on-one consulting to help you move your ideas forward. But just wanted to share a little bit about our programs and resources we're here to support. You don't have to be a Sac State student to plug in. And we look forward to engaging you, and hopefully you enjoy the conversation with Brian. And he's going to plug one of our programs later called our Virtual Entrepreneurship Toolkit series, which we hope this leads you into. So without further ado, I'll pass it on over to you, Brian.
Cool. Thanks, Cameron. I'm going to share my screen. And give me just a second. All right, I think we're cooking. You guys can all see my screen. So before we get into it, just a little bit about me. Thanks, Laura and Jeff, for having us. So besides being the EIR at Sac State's Carlson Center, which I love, and we've been doing lots of great things and working with wonderful groups, like Startup Sac and others in the community, I do a few things around strategy and innovation. So my focus on corporate innovation is through my own strategy and consulting firm, Strategy and Innovation Institute. So I work mostly with mid-sized, small firms doing corporate innovation. And then my other hat really is with the startup community as the EIR, using the same tools and best practices, though, frameworks, theories, tools to help startups, entrepreneurs, just as I would with a mid to large size business. Today, we're really going to focus on one of the leading tools and methods in the world, which is through lean startup, lean canvas, or lean stack the company. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that and how we use proven processes and methods to get to problem solution fit. And a little bit more about why me, why I'm talking about this. Well, I spent a lot of years in education around the topics of business model innovation, creating new market space, problem solution fit, and trying to see which of those tools and frameworks are best of breed and trying to integrate them together. And today we'll definitely share the tools and processes that we use also at the Carlson Center when we do our toolkit series that we'll touch on, that you can join us for free, and also the ones that most of the large incubators and accelerators in the world also use as a core foundation in a lot of their programs. And we'll touch on those tools and how you can use them to get to problem solution fit. So I'm guessing that most of you here are, and I know some of you, are either in the ecosystem or are the entrepreneurs trying to actually launch a new business and trying to figure out how do I quickly get to problem solution fit. So we're going to touch on that today. But the very first thing that we talk about in our series of workshops at the Carlson Center, or that you really need to look at as an entrepreneur, is your mindset. One of the key differences of a mindset nowadays versus the mindset in the past is how you go about launching a business, how you go about figuring out what the customer needs. Historically, we'd make this big, huge Word document, 200-300 pages. You'd spend 6 to 9 months to create it, and you'd go to the bank and try and get a loan and start your business. So that doesn't exist anymore. It's very slow, it's static, it's not really agile enough to understand the changes in the market and the customer quick enough. So, you've probably heard the terms lean startup, which is about 10 years old now, a lot of Silicon Valley. Well, those theories and mindsets is really all about how do I figure stuff out quick, learn from doing tests, and then quickly get these new learnings into my product or solution and get it out to the market. And that's no different as an entrepreneur and trying to figure out what the customer needs and how to create your solution. It's this really this mindset shift of loving the problem, not your solution. Most innovators, especially people who invent things and that are technology based, will have the mindset of I've built something, or I have the technology and know how to build something, and I think that this thing I built can solve somebody's problem. Let me go find out whose problem I can solve. That's backwards. You really need to understand problems first so you can actually build your solution to those problems. This is a big key shift in a lot of how entrepreneurs go to market. And through LeanStack, the company who created Lean Canvas, which many of you have heard of or use, really the Ash Moria, we'll give him credit. He's the author of that, the founder of LeanStack, and created the Lean Canvas, which we're going to touch on in a minute. It's created this really platform and shift of tools and mindset to help people quickly get to problem solution fit, product market fit, get to scale. We're going to use a lot of those tools today. And this mindset shift can really start with this innovator's bias, we call it, or innovator's gift, depending how you look at it. If you've been an entrepreneur for any length of time, you've probably created something and said, gee, what problem can I solve, right? And this is how, especially a lot of people that are technically savvy, Silicon Valley happens all the time, which is why 9 out of 10 startups fail. We build stuff, but nobody wants it. We build it because we can. We have this technical know-how, whether it's a product or a new app, and now we try and go out and figure out how do we market this and who do we sell this thing to. That's backwards. You really, as an innovator, you're creating a gift. Every existing solution anywhere in the world, product, service, has a problem with it. Just depends on to what degree does that current solution have a problem? Is it big enough worth solving? And what are those problems that currently exist with the way you currently use a product or service? Okay. We all have existing alternatives in every single market in the world. I love to talk about new market space or blue oceans, if you've heard that term. But even then, we have an existing alternative to do something or get around a problem we might have. The key to finding problem solution fit is first really understanding the problem. And the way to do that is to use some proven tools, but really get the insights from our customers. This entrepreneurial method at a high level really is 3 parts to it. Start with a model. We all have, as entrepreneurs, some idea of a problem and solution that we want to create as a business plan that we think is awesome. We then need to figure out, how do we prioritize what are the riskiest assumptions that you're making with this idea you have? And then how do we go out and test those quickly and refine our model without a lot of time and money and resources? These are the things that we really talk about, and you need to understand as an entrepreneur to reduce your risk and really improve that probability you're going to succeed. Don't start with an MVP. And this is what a lot of people will build, right? And you as entrepreneurs, you will build a minimum viable product. And you're trying to quickly build something, product or service, that you can get out and sell or test. Well, building something first is the wrong way to go about it, because you don't even know what problems or features you need to build to solve a problem until you've gotten more insights from your customers in the market, whether they're current or even non-customers. So what this graph shows is really a timeline that is a pretty good average with evidence behind it, data driven, around how you could quickly get to problem solution fit in 3 months, if you're aggressive, then to product market fit within 2 years, and then scale up. And this is your normal hockey stick you see as you're creating for investor pitch decks. But instead of just using arbitrary numbers that you say you want to get 5% of the market, we really start with the end in mind. What are your goals to generate a certain amount of revenue, and work backwards to try and be realistic that now we've got here we call it foundation. What's our business model we're trying to create, and ideate around that? And what are these frameworks and mindsets that we have to have and tools that we need to understand to go out and use? Once we do that, we can then try and get to problem solution fit, which we're going to spend a lot of time on here. But instead of building an MVP that you've probably heard about before and go out and test, the new mindset is trying to get problem solution fit without building anything. Actually getting to revenue positive, generating revenue without actually building a product. And you do this through customer insights and getting them so invested in the problems that they need to have overcome and the potential offer that you can give to them, that you're getting pre-signups for something you haven't even built yet. So instead of wasting time and money building stuff and then testing it, you work backwards. And we're going to talk a lot about this and show real world examples of how this works. So this scaling timeline here of getting to problem solution fit, building your MVP once you have enough insights, getting that to the market, and then within about 2 years, this is what we call product market fit. Your MVP is not product market fit. That's just your minimum thing that someone's going to pay you for. It doesn't mean the rest of the market's going to pay you for it. That's where you get product market fit. So to understand how we get these insights, let's look at one of the major tools that we use. This is the lean canvas, which is adapted from the business model canvas. The lean canvas is probably the most used single tool for entrepreneurs anywhere in the world. Most accelerators, incubators use it for the business model canvas. It is a one-page document that shows your business model in its entirety. Your business model is how you create, deliver, and capture value. That's what your business model is. These really 9 boxes, show you all the parts, both the front side where your customers are and the back side, you as the vendor, what you're making and your costs. And then here in the middle, that thing you've brought to market, your unique value prop, how we create value. When we look at this business model, the first goal is to kind of think of this as your business plan. Instead of writing, again, a 200-word document, we create one page now. And we quickly try and test each of these pieces, the most important and riskiest ones first, to figure out, do we have something worth building? And the very first thing we do is focus on the edges, which are highlighted. We don't really have a thing to build, a product or service, unless we have a customer that has a big enough problem worth us solving. Everything else is just fluff. You could have everything else here figured out, your channels, and you've built this great thing, and you're awesome, and you can make a ton of money, but if nobody has the problem or the need, then no one's going to buy it. So what we focus on is we call the leaner canvas, just the left and the right side to start with. These are your riskiest assumption areas that we need to figure out and gain insights to really create your offer. So who's your customer? What do those segments look like? Your early adopters, how do you qualify and identify who your early adopters are? Your problems, what are the 3 top problems that you believe these customers have? And then currently, this is a big one that gets really forgotten, how do they solve those problems today? This is your competition, but also think of it broader as existing alternatives. There might not be a direct competitor. It could be a substitute, an adjacent market, DIY. How do they solve that problem today? This is the very first starting point to figure out problem solution fit. And we're going to talk about what we call sprints or experiments in just a minute, and quickly trying to get insights from your customers on what those problems are, and then prioritize to get to the biggest problems. To do that, to get those insights, we really look at this term called a sprint, and many of you are familiar with, but if you're not, it's just a 1 to 2 week experiment timeline that you're basically saying, I'm going to do a quick experiment. I'm going to gather insights from the market, my customers. I'm going to learn from these insights, and then I'm going to, iterate my solution or my business model. But everything starts with a hypothesis. So you as an entrepreneur have an idea or an opinion of what you think the problem is that you want to solve for. Well, that's a hypothesis. So you need to break this down into very small pieces to say, okay, for this first sprint, call it 2 weeks, I need to discover what the problems really are. I have an idea what I think they are. Maybe you've experienced it, you've seen it, someone's told you about it, but now you need to validate it. So you need to create an experiment with a hypothesis, one hypothesis to go out and test. And literally that is going out and meeting people, doing customer discovery interviews, observing how they use things. It's not just a focus group. That's not really at a deep enough level to understand people's problems. So when you do this, you do a few of these sprints to gain insights of the problem you think exists. Way before problem solution fit, you need to figure out customer problem fit. And this is one of the areas that people never talk about, because you as an entrepreneur, you think you already have the answer and you're just trying to validate it. That is incorrect. You have an opinion, a hypothesis, that now you need to be objective and go out and test, because otherwise you'll go bankrupt and you're going to make something nobody wants. So getting to customer problem fit is your very first step. You think there's a problem. Do these customers really have this problem that you say exists? Maybe they have it in a slightly different way. And that prioritization of those problems is key for you, because you want to focus your solution on the biggest problems, which people will pay the most money for, not the smallest problems. Once you do that, then we're going to talk about how do we assemble an offer and deliver that offer that people say, yeah, that's amazing, that would solve my problem, and they actually want, right? They're pulling that offer, from you. Yes, you make that, I will buy it. And this is when we come back to that creating something without building it. That gets us potentially to problem solution fit. So as you're working through your new startup, whatever that is, and trying to quickly get to problem solution fit, think about getting to customer problem fit first, doing some sprints, getting some insights. And now we're going to talk about how do we get to this space of an offer to get to problem solution fit. Well, as we go back to this infographic here, really of starting with a model, prioritizing and testing, you then learned, and this is a lean sprint, one cycle through a hypothesis of testing something that's risky, getting some learnings from customers. That's a lean sprint, usually 2 weeks. And you want to make these things quick. You want to go out, and whether it's 10 or 50 customers, getting insights, trying to validate. And you might have to do sprints 2 or 3 times on the same thing to get enough information. But that will, with just in a few weeks, give you huge insights without spending a lot of money and putting a lot of resources behind building something. What we've just talked about is this first story, customer problem fit. Insights, understanding the problem to help you as the entrepreneur define the solution that you think you already want to build, but it's helping accelerate the way you're building it, the features you're focusing on, so that you're not wasting time building a bunch of stuff that doesn't really matter. After we do that, let's say we've done a few sprints and we've now defined the problem, we've gotten some insights. We want to craft an offer. We still haven't built an MVP yet, but an offer basically is telling the customer, here's the problems that you told me you have, that you validated. Here's whatever those things are. Here is my solution, and here is my price. That's where the rubber hits the road to find out, am I on the right track with this market and this customer? Will they potentially say, yes, I would buy that, or sign up for a list to be first in line to buy it, or even put a deposit, things like this. This is your offer. This is the new way to get to problem solution fit instead of the old way, which is the old way was build it, demo it, then sell it. And the new way is, sell something with an offer, you're demoing this, and then you're building it. So we're really looking backwards so that you're not wasting time on the MVP. Once you've got enough people to say, yes, this is an offer I would purchase or actually do give you pre-monies, then you can go off and build the MVP knowing that what you're building is actually what people want. How do we do that? Well, at a high level, we just touched on this: experimentation, offer, MVP. And many of you are advocates and fans of lean startup, right? And lean startup is all about being agile and quick. But when you think about lean startup and being agile, really a lot of people think about, let's build it, then let's measure what we saw and we learned from that. Well, the building really talks about physically putting a product or service together. Use that from a different little bit of a lens, saying, yeah, we're using the lean startup kind of agile methodology, but we're building an offer. We're not actually physically building the MVP yet. We're actually getting ideas out there. We're building upon these insights so that we understand what this product could look like and getting that data and reiterating it. So it's really this cycle around build, measure, learn, but you're really trying to get the insights as much as you can before you physically start creating something. And the offer, again, we call this a mafia offer. And a mafia offer is not that, you know, you buy this or else. It is an offer that's so good that your customers just can't refuse it. They say, yeah, that meets every need, the biggest issues that I've talked about. I love that. And it's a stand-in for your solution that helps you define your unique value prop and MVP. Because if you don't have enough insights, you're most likely going to build your unique value prop, your MVP, with too much stuff. So then by definition, you've wasted time to market, you've wasted resources and money because you've overbuilt something. So getting that offer correct is the key thing with the least risk and least money. We can then get to MVP, which is the smallest thing that creates and delivers and monetizes value from your customers. So demo, sell, build versus build, demo, sell. This is the new thinking around entrepreneurship and startups that hopefully will help reduce your risk. These early adopters that we're trying to go talk to is the key way to get to market. So we've talked about getting these customers' insights, reiterating what we're going to build to these people. Well, it's not everyone in the market. It's your early adopters you want to get to. Defining who those are sometimes is not very easy, but you're really looking for people that have experienced a switching trigger. So your early adopters might not be you or I in a certain instance. It's those people who are actively looking for a solution to a problem because they've either recently experienced something, know that there's a better way to do it. You know, think about people that bought the first smartphone, right? That wasn't me, I was a laggard. So you know in your industry who potentially could be these early adopters. What we're looking for is people that have had some sort of event, a trigger like COVID is a perfect example, that has changed their way of using something, their expectations, their experience, and you want to talk to them about this problem. This Visio, they call it the customer forces model, is really all about customer behavior. This helps us get to problem solution fit because we need to understand these insights, what is changing the customer's behavior, why have these problems come about, how severe are these problems, and especially in things like COVID and crisis, the severity of a problem can go extremely high, which then basically creates that need for innovation, a new way of doing something. And when we look at this model, we're basically saying that down here was the old way of doing something, and we always, you know, hate something new. We don't want to change what we've done. You know, we're looking for the easiest path forward, least resistance. But once we have a triggering event, and this is the customer, those things change. So now their expectations maybe didn't get met. They had a bad experience. There's a huge change in circumstance, again, like COVID, or they're aware of a better way to do something. Maybe it's because of technology, whatever it might be. So they're potentially actively looking, for this. They're pushing themselves to find a better way. You, as the entrepreneur, are also pulling them towards this, innovator's gift, this new, better way of doing something for a new, better desired outcome. Without this pain and triggering event, it's sometimes very unlikely that you're going to get somebody to move from, the old way to the new way. There has to be a leap in value of the thing you're creating. If there's not a huge leap in value, then you probably haven't found the big pain, enough problems that someone's going to pay you money for it. So what is this event? We've touched on the innovator's gift once, twice before. And what is this? Well, new problems are worth solving. That worth solving can be discovered by studying how customers use old solutions. So I mentioned before, every solution has a problem, even brand new ones that come to market, whether it's a different demographic, a different use of technology, just depends on to what degree that problem exists. New problems are created as byproducts of old solutions. So the way we use something today, it might suffice, but maybe tomorrow, because of some event or something we had an experience, it's not good enough. There are always byproducts of using something and a better way to do it. And we're going to look at an example in just a second. And your gift is a promise of a better way to fix their problems. That's the innovator's gift. You can only do that through those insights, understanding their problems. So kind of a different way to look at the customer behavior chart, the customer forces canvas. Think of the old way. We always resist a new way of doing something. We're comfortable. We have this inertia, and it's fine. Then we have a expectation that gets violated, right? Again, triggering, think COVID, easy one. Now they're motivated for some new desired outcome. And you're giving them this pull, this promise of this new offer. And this is a term that we haven't touched on yet that many of you might know of, called jobs to be done. They're looking for a new desired outcome. You're promising them a new desired outcome. This is the problem and solution fitting together. And a better way to think of problems and pains and needs and wants is a theory and a term called jobs to be done. It's about 10, 15 years old. Tony Ulwick and Clayton Christensen coined the terms, and it's still heavily used today. And it's the best way, I think, of for an entrepreneur to focus on what the customer is trying to get done. We all have a job we're trying to do, and usually multiple jobs when we buy a product or a service. I bought my blue hydro flask to get certain jobs done, right? Well, the functional one is because I want to keep things cold. Well, why did I buy blue? And why did I buy it in such a large size? Well, maybe blue is my favorite color, so that's more emotional, right? We all have emotional, social, and functional things we're trying to get done, jobs. We don't buy a Porsche because it's functional. We buy it because it's maybe emotionally or socially we're trying to get some job done. What are the jobs to be done besides the obvious functional ones that your customers are trying to get done? Those are problems as well that you have to solve for. And if you have a better new way to figure out what these jobs to be done are, you can more quickly get to problem solution fit. Let's look at an example of jobs to be done. Think of listening to music. Love music. So for all of us who were back in the 70s, we have and 80s, our mixtape. I still have some in my garage. And that was great because it got music to us. But then there was a better way to do something. A CD came out, right? It was much more robust. You could pack more onto something. It was clearer, and you even had the hardware that went with it. And then a better way came out, which was the iPod. And now you had even more things you could do, more jobs to be done even, which was You had it as a mobile device, maybe different colors. Then came along a better way even yet to get this job done of listening to music, which is Spotify, Pandora, all these ways of streaming music. And then you had it in your home with Sonos, being able to play that in home. And now you have Alexa and things like that, where we can actually just tell it, hey, play this music, and it could stream in from wherever device. So it's still the same job, but it's what's the jobs to be done? How much of a leap in value? What problems are you solving for the customers? So we need to think about it in those terms so that you understand, how do I craft my offer to best meet their problems and jobs? So back to this mafia offer that we're trying to get to, so that we can actually get some revenue generating customers, build our MVP, and off we go. And again, it's an offer your customers can't refuse, because you have already gotten from them their own feedback on what matters, what their problems are, how big the problems are. So now you've put a cost to that, a price. You've put features to a solution that are the minimum set to meet their needs. Now you can go out and make that offer to the public. You can start generating revenue without actually having an MVP or a product that they physically take ownership of, that is showing traction. And as many of you know, as an entrepreneur, traction is all that matters to investors. Traction is showing positive either revenue or customers that are joining you in some degree. So what is a real life example of this being done? Sounds impossible. It's difficult, but it's not impossible. Think about Tesla. So when Musk came out with the first Tesla sports car, how did he do it? How did he figure out what the market was to prove to investors and to the market that there was a need that he was solving, that there were customers that had this want or need? Well, his first car was the Roadster. But if you know the story of this, he didn't go out, and Tesla did not build the car, as many of you do as an entrepreneur. You want to go out and build your first iteration of this. Tesla built no car at all. They went and got a shell of a Lotus Esprit, which is what this is. They took out the engine, they took out all the insides, they put their own seats in there, and they put batteries where the engine was. Took off the stickers that said Lotus, and said to their early adopters, which were very high-end, high net worth people who like sports cars, not the mass market. They went specifically for those early adopters who would be a smaller group to get to, an easier group to get to, and had a much wider range of tolerance for pricing, as well as waiting for something. And they said, hey, are you interested in this, Mr. Sports Car Enthusiast? If we could build, this, would you want one? And they had it on the showroom floor, looked like this. And then the people would see it and think, gee, yeah, that looks great. And it's going to be electric. Sign me up. That's what they did. They took a sign-up sheet, $5,000 deposit. And they basically said, we will put you on our waiting list or wish list, and we will start making this for you. And in a certain period of time, a few months, you need to then, either send us more deposit or pay for it in full. So they were getting revenue before ever even creating a car or physically selling a car to somebody. This is a mafia offer. They basically took something else, gutted it, and said, does this solve your problem? Great, if so, give us some money, then we'll go build it for you. We're going to demo it to you, we're going to sell it to you, and then we're going to go build it. We didn't build it, demo it, and sell it. That saved them millions and millions. Can you imagine the cost of putting up a automotive manufacturing plant to then build some cars, to go out and say, would you want to buy this? And if nobody wants it, you've spent hundreds of millions building a factory. Just go out, get somebody else's, and make it look like your own, and sell the idea of the problem you're solving. This wasn't even the market they were going after. So they started with this as the early adopters, just to show traction that they could actually make an electric car and get obviously high revenues, which would help. But the mass market for Elon Musk and Tesla was the mid market. You know, the Model S and the other models who were the mid-size, you know, luxury sedans. But that wasn't the early adopters they want to go after, because this was much more price sensitive. You have many more of these you have to make the same profits. So he said, let's just test it with the high end of the market first, prove we can do it. And as we start to get better at it, then we can come down market to the big market. So you don't always have to start with the biggest consumer demand segment that you're going after. So that's a real world example of creating a mafia offer, a problem solution fit with building no MVP and actually generating revenue by going through many iterations of customer insights, talking to those early adopters, what they want, high performance, you know, the big customer, LED display, all those sort of things were the insights that they gained from that. So I hope that the methodology and the mindset of loving the problem, not the solution, thinking about customer insights and customer problem fit before problem solution fit, and being able to test and offer something without wasting time building it helps you hopefully either evolve or change your direction of what you're building now, so that you don't waste time, money, and resources building something just because you can, but in most likely that nobody wants. So we're going to stop there and take questions, and also hear what's next. We can talk about two different things. A lot of these tools and methods and mindsets we cover in our Carlson Center Toolkit series, we call it. It's 5 weeks. It's free. It's 6 to 8 p.m. Wednesday nights, and we start next Wednesday as our first week, and it goes for 5 weeks in a row. And we basically take you through the lean canvas, the tool we showed, each of the 9 boxes, how to go about filling those and evolving those and testing those, and basically taking that content to put into a pitch deck that are the standard investor pitch decks now that are that all investors are looking for. So we also have a panel of investors and VCs that you get to talk to, as well as guest speakers on the various topics each week. I would recommend that. A second one that you can contact me on is all the tools I showed you here today are from Lean Stack. Again, the creators of Lean Canvas. And I am a certified coach and mentor for Lean Stack for people that come to that platform. And we actually have the first 2 playbooks on business modeling and continuous innovation mindset. You can sign up for free to Lean Stack and get all this content, use the platform, the tools, and understand how to use these things to quickly get to market. There are then obviously 4 fee playbooks after that that you can decide if you want to use or not. But this is a great way to really get into an accelerator, which is what Lean Stack really is, for free, using some of the best tools, known tools in the world. So I'm going to stop there and throw it over also, Cameron, let you open it up. And Laura or Jeff, if there are questions, let's dig into some questions.
Yeah, so if you have a question, if you want to raise your Zoom hand, if you know how to do that, or just make a note in the chat that you want to ask a question, and we'll call on you just to kind of keep it a little bit easier to control. So who's got the first question? Let's see. Don't see any hands raised.
Either shy, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll ask a question. So definitely some of this is new to me, even though I've been hanging out in this space for a long time. Are there some books and things that you might recommend that people read?
Great question. So Ash Maurya, who I've mentioned, I'd say he's one of the handful of folks in the world who's kind of recognized as kind of leaders in this space. You have Eric Ries, who created the idea of Lean Startup. Ash Moria is the guy who created the Lean Canvas and his company Lean Stack. He wrote 2 books. One of them is here on my shelf, you can see, called Scaling Lean. And his other one is called Running Lean. And those are all about the Lean Canvas, the methodology, scaling up and using these type of tools and mindsets to quickly build stuff people want. So Running Lean and Scaling Lean by Ash Moria. The other ones, again, the Lean Startup that many of you know about. And then many complementary ones, again, that I'm big on evidence-based theories that have enough proven case studies behind them to use. None of us have enough experience to say that we're the end-all, be-all, know-it-all. So Testing Business Ideas from Strategizer is a great book on, to me, one of the hardest things to do out there is a entrepreneur is go out and test. Like, okay, great, I want to do a sprint, I want to do this test, and I've got this hypothesis. What test do I do? How in the heck do I do a test? And that's the hard stuff. And that's a great book. It's the brand new book. I think it's a bestseller on Amazon. Testing Business Ideas is fantastic. So those are some great tools to quickly help you from just the business modeling, testing perspective on getting to problem solution fit.
Okay. And there's a question in the chat. It's not so much related to what we presented today, but perhaps you have an answer from, I hope this is your name, Kaizen. When should you incorporate a company? And if you live in California and plan to use a virtual address, is it a good idea to establish your company in a different state? And that's actually a pretty complex question. There's a Startup Grind has an event early next month in February on sort of like legal mistakes startups make. That would be a great place to ask that question. But Brian or Jesse, do you have anything you want to add on that?
You've said it well, Laura. That's a complex question that I would, I pretended to be a lawyer before. It didn't go so well, so I won't.
You just play one on TV. Yeah. Jeff, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. So I have a little bit of experience with this. I was part of a short-lived venture that we incorporated in Delaware with the idea of trying to get around the the $800 a year excise tax in California. We found out, since 2 of us operated in California, that in order for us to open a bank account in California, we had a certification from the California Secretary of State. And in order to do that, we had to open the bank account. In order to do that, we had to pay the excise tax. So we didn't get around it. And actually, it was worse because we had to pay excise tax in both Delaware and California, or would have had to.
Yeah, the only way to get around taxes in California is not to have anyone live in California or do any business activities in California. But I'm going to post the link to the Startup Grind event, and it's free. So if you've got legal questions, go to that page and you'll see it. Other questions? Let's see. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Does anyone else have a question they'd like to ask? You could go ahead and unmute yourself if I've made it too complicated. Oh, Javier has a question. Okay, Javier, go ahead and ask.
Oh, hi there. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. One thing I was wondering is, if you have already built a product and you haven't used these strategies to build that product, is there a way to kind of incorporate these after the fact and kind of build them into the product without having to scrap everything?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I'm experiencing that currently with a couple of folks I'm involved with, and it's not easy. You get frustrated because you're like, well, I've already done all this stuff, but you don't want to keep going down the wrong path, right? Keep building stuff that you don't know if is the right thing. So you can still stop where you are. There's 2 things that I'm doing and I recommend. One is looking at all the stuff that you've already done, and maybe you haven't physically documented all the findings you had, but try and look at what those findings are, right? You might have gotten a lot of customer feedback and insights, and whether it's focus groups or blogs or whatever, that you can say, okay, we didn't formally do a sprint and document this, but now you can go back at it and say, okay, here's what we think the riskiest assumptions were. We kind of have some data here. Okay, we're on the right track. Then the other part is look at where we are at now. Maybe we do need to go back and do a couple of tests on risky assumptions that we actually haven't tested. So most likely you probably touched on a few things already. This will help you validate and confirm some of those areas that you're maybe challenging and struggling in now, and then make sure you don't miss some of the big assumptions. We want to test our riskiest assumptions first. Nothing else matters if you're not testing the big things, whether that's the problem exists or that they'll actually buy it for this. The last thing you actually want to ever test is, can we feasibly build it? Because if you can build it, that's great. But if people will only pay X for something and the features need to be this, that's the first thing that matters. There might be ways to build something you have no idea about. And so that last piece, the third piece of that lens is the feasibility. Can we build it? But I would just tell you, look back at your data, try and make some risky assumption mapping and see if you have gaps in your data, and then go out and quickly try and test those now to help you forward to make sure you're going down the right path.
Okay, there's a question in the chat from Luciano. Do you want to ask that yourself?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, Brian, just, thanks for the great presentation. Just a question on the kind of the application of the problem space characterization. Just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on maybe references and or methods or tools you've used to really kind of go deep on characterizing, let's say, pain or gain around a particular use case that would enable one to know, where and how the solution could or should be built.
Okay, I think I've got what you're saying. So I know you've gone through the toolkit series and you're pretty good at some of these tools and processes. Another tool that I like, we didn't show here, obviously not enough time, that fits very well with jobs to be done and the problems and pains you're talking about is called the value proposition canvas. So when we're thinking about somebody's job to be done, their pain, their problem, great, we can go talk to them, but another tool to document that or map that problem out or job to be done, the value proposition canvas is one of the best. And basically, you can Google that. It's you can download it for free. Strategizer is the company who created it, same people who created the business model canvas. And it basically has on one side the customer profile. What's my job? What are my pains I'm worried about? What are my gains I want? And then what I've built, what are my features of my solution that kind of map to those? And the question then from all these insights, do you map to those pains and gains and jobs to be done? That's a wonderful tool to use. And hopefully that was good. I hope that answered your question is one of the ways to do it. Trying to think of some of the other areas I like to use. Well, the canvases themselves, the lean and business model canvas, I think are the starting points. And then those other tools can be worked in and methodologies, design thinking, lean startup. Does that help answer it, Luciano? Was there something specific you had in mind?
Yeah, I was thinking like applying that to something like Airtable for a customer interview. Like, is there some interplay of, or are there other
Right.
kind of tools that you like at the approach? Yes, but like, so I've been using Airtable, for example. Is there other kinds of tools like that as well?
To try and get to customers, gain insights.
Exactly.
Yeah, and this is definitely an area that I'm still trying to get better at and grow in. And if you haven't read the book, the Testing Business Ideas book, I would. In the back of it, David Bland and Alex Osterwald, who created it, have a list of about 20 or 30 websites that are for people like you and entrepreneurs who are saying, okay, I have a sprint, I have a test. How do I stand up a landing page? how do I do, this test? And these are very simple sites or companies that can either build something or do something for you, or a Survey Monkey type thing. So those are great examples of things like using an Airtable or some sort of forum or blog or survey to capture information. Check that out. And I can actually, in the toolkit series, I know you've been on, we have one of the experiment sheets too. They've summarized in the book, and you can get the PDF of it. There's 44 different experiments that they talk through, and whether it's testing, is it desirable, is it feasible, is it viable, what those tests are, everything from sorting a card game, like if we're doing a one-on-one interview and I say, gee, here's 10 problems, sort these and rank them, or another one-on-one type of interview thing is called the speedboat. Like you literally put a speedboat up on a wall with anchors coming down, that what's slowing you down, Mr. Customer, and they put sticky notes on them and write their problems, that this is my biggest problem. And you do 3 or 4 of those, you then gather those insights, almost like brainstorming. So those are some tools that you can use a one-on-one versus the more technical virtual remote way you're talking about.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're running out of time. We're going to have one more question, but before we get to that, I'd say if you want to know more about this in depth, I've posted again the link to the Entrepreneurship Toolkit series at the Carlson Center. That starts next Wednesday at 6 and meets every Wednesday for 5 weeks. But you can also drop in based on the particular topic that evening, and you can go ahead and click through that link to find out more. So Billy, you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Hi, I was wondering about how you define the risky assumptions, and more specifically about how specific those assumptions should get. Like, as an example, would a risky assumption be like, would the customer like this, or should it be, will the customer buy this, or once they've bought it, will they use it in this particular way?
Yeah, it's a great question. So 2 answers, and I don't have the slides here to show those, but actually we'll go back to the beginning. Indulge. Here we go. So the riskiest things are going to be, obviously, we're talking about problem solution fit, around who you think the customer is, what problems you think they actually have, right? And what are they doing now to solve that problem? To document that, 2 theories, Lean Stack and Ash Moria, they really talk about and promote traction and looking at the end in mind, understanding what your goals are, and then working backwards to say, okay, if I need $1 million a year, that means I need 1,000 customers a month coming to my site. How do I look at my riskiest business model pieces to understand, is that even worthy? Are there even that many customers, and so forth? That's one way to do it. You can also combine, which I like, is called assumptions mapping. So assumptions mapping is created by David Bland, and you can Google assumptions mapping. He's also the one who wrote the Testing Business Ideas book. And it is talking about, you take your business model and you're going to look at each of these areas. And so on the right-hand side, you think about this, it's all about the customer's needs and desirability of our product. And then you have the backside, which is around us and can we build something, feasibility. And then the bottom is around costs and revenues, can we make enough money at it, which is viability. And you basically put those on an XY axis, and it says, are these important or not important? And do we have evidence or do we not have evidence? And in those quadrants, you kind of, as a team, are going to put up sticky notes, almost like brainstorming, right? And say, okay, yeah, we know this is the customer segment. How, it's up to you. We know these are the early adopters. gee, we have no idea what the channel is to get to this market, right? Okay, maybe that's a big one. Maybe it's important and known. Maybe it's important and and unknown. So you have to define what are our biggest things we think are going to stop us from moving forward, and then just focus on those most important unknown assumptions that you're making as a business, right? We think people are going to spend, $100 on our product, whatever it is. That's an assumption you're making. So you need to figure out those things first. But assumptions mapping, that XY axis helps with that, helps visualize and prioritize, as well as it's called the Customer Factory Blueprint. It is a tool, again, in Lean Stack that helps you visualize how many people need to come through, go to your site, buy something, activate, refer, retain, all these things to your metrics. It's all around metrics and traction is how they look at it, to figure out where is my riskiest area. But you still have to have customer insights, right? So 2 different ways.
All right, and that's all we have time for today, but I've posted again the Carlson Center office hours if you want to schedule some time with Brian or Jesse or Cameron. And we've also been posting in the chat some of the upcoming events, including a link to the Startup Digest, which comes out every Monday and has all the startup events that are happening in the greater Sacramento region. It's free to subscribe to that. Cameron, did you want to say any last words about the toolkit or anything else?
Yeah, just first off, want to say thank you again, Jeff and Laura, for partnering on this event and bringing us in. Enjoyed being here and obviously having Brian talk about kind of customer discovery and loving the problem. Yeah, definitely plugging our toolkit series. So this was kind of just a taste of what we're going to be sharing. I shared the screenshot that Brian was referring to around assumptions mapping, and those are the tools that we're going to be teaching you throughout those 5 weeks. So highly recommend plugging into that 5-part series. I know a number of you have attended that, but look forward to seeing you then. It is from 6 to 8 p.m. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you next Wednesday.
Yeah, and we're going to post the video. Also, Brian, some people were interested in your slides. Would you be able to share that with me, and then we'll include that along with the post that we do with the video, probably later this week or early next week. And I will try to remember to send that to everyone who registered for the event, or just go to startupsac.com and look for it in 5 days or so.
Absolutely, I will do that.
And Brian, thank you so much for teaching us today. That was really helpful. So thank you.
Thanks for having us. Hopefully you guys got some value and something new you can take away. So appreciate all you guys do.
Yeah, we definitely got great value out of that. So without any further ado, I think, Cameron, we can close out the meeting until we meet again.
Sounds good. Thank you all. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Bye.